The next film in the trilogy is Halloween Kills. So many problems with this film, it almost feels like a Halloween prank. Let's get started though. The film starts with a scene of Myers being burned alive in the basement and showing Laurie, Karen, and Allison leaving the burning home. It shows Allison holding Myers' knife, and that's the first element of plot inquiry. Another subliminal jab, and it's quite obvious what it refers to. Jamie Lloyd at the end of Halloween 4. Why keep implementing references to other Halloween films that you didn't link your storyline to? It frustrates fans of that timeline, they do not want to see any references to those films. In essence, your storyline is just a compilation of references to non-related films of the past. That's extremely agitating to watch. Extremely agitating to watch, and even more in reviewing the garbage. But we have to reveal the very reason for these films being produced. Let's continue. Not gonna waste time with the fireman kill scene, it's not that bad. But if the first civilian kill scene is quite silly, then everything goes downhill from there. There is an old couple, and Myers has entered their home. The dialogue from the old man is, "Hey Sandra, there's a big fella in our bathroom, and he's wearing a monster mask." Sandra replies, "What the fuck does he want?" And the old man replies, "Who gives a shit, call the cops," and then Myers attacks him. The dialogue is not bad, it's something an old couple would say, quote, "There's a big fella in our bathroom." The acting wasn't that bad either, but Sandra should have survived. She reaches to unlock her kitchen door, which somehow is impossible to do. It's not like Myers had anything to do with that, she just decides, well, instead of running away from someone who has me screaming like crazy, I'll just forget about escaping and try to fight him off. Myers doesn't even seem interested in killing her neither, he calmly grabs a light bulb, in which Sandra is literally watching him do instead of trying to escape. He calmly walks to her, and the scene has Sandra just stand there and be stabbed in the neck. For your first kill scene, it establishes how the characters will be depicted, dummy kills. Dummy kills are when the character does not have an actual human element to their death, despite screaming their lungs out. It's how the directors want them to die, for the infamous kill count of Myers. There have not been dummy kills in the original series, all victims were either caught by surprise or tried to put up a fight. But these kills are sloppy, unrealistic, and quite boring to watch. There is no intensity, there is no suspense, it's just fluffy runtime. Fluffy runtime is when directors waste valuable time into scenes that have no real purpose, or it does have purpose, but extends too long before the next scene. Most of the time, this fluff is to make room for something later in the film. And this is literally what is unfolding in this kitchen scene, what the hell? The old man is not dead yet, Myers drags his body into the kitchen, with a dying Sandra watching. Myers proceeds to stab him in the back numerous times, as Sandra watches. This is pointless time wasted for Myers, he has a target out there, who trapped him in a basement, and fucking set him on fire. Now in the scope of that encounter, Myers would be driven to kill Laurie specifically, now he has an objective to kill her. Myers would not waste valuable time on this couple, just go ahead and slice their throats, leave the house, and continue to track down his target. Damn, we just started, it gets worse. The next scene of interest is the retcon's introduction to Tommy Doyle. There is a combination of problems here. Tommy Doyle was a child who lived through the experience. No problem, he has a connection worthy of a key role in the film. The problems start when the actor playing the role simply can't capture the same urgency and believability as the previous version of Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd. He captured the terrifying effects of living through that experience, which led him to become consumed with Myers. But this Tommy Doyle appears hapless, aimless, no real urgency in stopping Myers. Tommy has gathered up a group in attempts to stop Myers. He has a bat, which apparently he has held onto for this very moment. Nothing wrong with the small town vibe of the setting, but his belief that he will beat Myers to death with a bat just comes off as arrogant. And that's the problem, the character has an arrogance about him, which doesn't translate to being a real challenge for Myers, because he hasn't really engaged Myers like Laurie has. To be honest, his role is more about nostalgia, rather than a challenge. I'm not sure what the directors were smoking, but they clearly were under the influence of something. The next scene has Tommy leading the group to a vehicle that they believe Myers is in. The person in the vehicle is playing music on the radio station and even changes channels. Tommy approaches the car, thinking it's Myers just randomly out and about, and provokes him to come out. Now to the audience, we already know this is not Myers. So this scene doesn't have a point, just random fluff runtime. It's not like they presented a setting where the audience wasn't sure if it would be Myers or not. This is horrible screenwriting, and it also makes the character Tommy a dumb main character. If his character does not understand how Myers operates, then he's essentially erased as a nostalgic reference. He just blends in with all the other dumb characters in the film. This is a tragedy, but let's continue. Speaking of dumb characters, they pulled out all the stops for this circus. One death in this film, which is the epitome of it all. The nurse who shoots herself. It's hilarious as hell, but Halloween doesn't do hilarious. She approaches the vehicle, shooting at Myers in the truck. She gets closer, Myers kicks the door, it hits her hand, which the gun then points in her direction, and she shoots herself. But in a freeze frame, we see that the impact only had her aim affect slightly, so how did her entire arm literally aim directly to her? Well, let's just say she wanted to shoot herself. If the characters are dumb, then does Myers even need to waste time in killing them? They seem to be doing an effective job on their own. Just have her shoot Myers several times, as he gets out of the vehicle, then he stabs her. This way, she at least puts up a fight. And you want to know what else happens with this scenario? The audience is engaged in the action, as they genuinely support her efforts. So when she dies, it carries an emotional attachment, based on wanting the nurse to survive. But the screenwriters felt it would be, quote, awesome, to have her shoot herself in the head. It's not awesome, it is stupid. Myers is actually confused as to how dumb his victims are. He doesn't get an official kill count in my book. The next key scene is Laurie Strode in the hospital, talking to Officer Hawkins. Laurie states, I'm the one that brought it all on Haddonfield. But, you're not, because, you're not Myers' sister. Myers was returning to Haddonfield, regardless of you, Myers would kill people in the town, regardless of you, Myers would hunt down whoever he targets, regardless of you, Myers would kill tons of people, regardless of you. This scene is forcing Laurie to be the main character, by her own admission. The screenwriters implemented this into the scene, with perhaps an influence of Jamie Lee Curtis. They are hardwired in trying to drill that narrative into the audience's head. It may work with the new age fans of Halloween, but die-hard fans know that Myers only targeted Laurie because she was his younger sister. If she wasn't, as it's written in these retcons, Myers would have killed her already and moved on to the next set of victims in Haddonfield. But if you were playing the role of Myers' younger sister, that line would make sense, because it's a self-loathing dynamic of Laurie feeling partially responsible for the deaths in Haddonfield. Myers would kill innocent people, tracking you down. But it's not, so it comes off as arrogance. Now we're seeing a pattern revealing the problem. Ironically enough, there was a moment of checking an ego of Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode. In that hospital scene, Officer Hawkins tells Laurie, it's not her fault, it's his. As he had a chance to kill Myers, but missed his target. This pulls the attention away from Laurie, which is much needed. If this confession of Hawkins establishes that his inability to kill Myers that night is the cause of many deaths following, it naturally pushes Laurie out of the spotlight. It's a confession, so that is essentially explaining the storyline as a whole. On a side note, his flashback consists of great film production. That is the only positive in this film. It brilliantly recaptured the 80s era, even reviving Dr. Loomis. For that moment, I watched with satisfaction. It was quite impressive, I must say. But then the flashback ended, and the current film returns to its stupidity. The next key scene was the hospital mob idiots. There is an assumption that one of the patients who escaped was Myers in the hospital. Laurie spots the patient and tries to warn everyone it's not Myers. The word quickly got to the authorities, keep this in mind. Throughout the fluffy film time, Tommy is heading up the stairs, and an officer specifically tells him it's not him. Tommy, in his monumental stupidity, punches the officer and pushes him out the way. Now if the officer tells you it's not him, wouldn't you use your fucking town hero influence to warn others it's not him? They made Tommy Doyle one of the dumbest characters ever created in a film, and there have been some dumb characters. The mass hysteria continues as they trample over each other. But Karen locks the imposter in a hall. She knows it's not Myers, but the way the scene was structured, Karen didn't have the chance to reveal the truth. Of course, all to display a mob mentality. This is just another example of fluffy runtime. They could have sliced the scene in half, where Karen could have actually saved him by guiding him out of an exit. But due to external political nonsense, the directors felt the need to add the scene. You can't make the mob truly believe it was Myers, because there were enough people who refuted that assumption, right? The news had displayed the faces of the escaped patients. Of course, they blurred out Myers' face, but if Tommy couldn't differentiate between Mr. Penguin and Michael Myers, then how can he truly play a key role in the film? Screenwriters, just throw this screen script in the trash and start from scratch. Okay, Tommy is watching the news, they report 2 patients have escaped. Still implement the blurred Myers face, but Tommy states, that's him, that's Michael Myers. Gathers his so-called army, and plan their attack for Myers' arrival to town. And this of course, eliminates that entire hospital mob scene, replacing it with a better intensity of the inevitable confrontation further in the film. As for Mr. Penguin, well, either have him survive at the end of the film, or just have him killed by Myers. You see? Oh my days, it's unbearable at how stupid this film is. The imposter is on the roof, the mob is cheering him to jump, with Tommy within the crowd appearing just retarded as ever, then he jumps. And surely after splattering on the ground, now they realize it's not Myers. Sheriff Brackett tells Tommy it's not Myers, and what does Tommy say in response? How do we know? He's always worn a mask. It's brain dead. The audience recognized Myers, so they anticipated that Tommy, who is a nostalgic character, would have as well. But he didn't, so it makes him appear unaware of who he is ironically hunting. Which eliminates all impact the character should have had. Hypothetically, Myers could walk right past Tommy and he wouldn't even know it, without his mask on. That's how dumb they made the character. But this had to be how it went, due to external social-political garbage. Presenting Tommy Doyle as if he will be a legitimate challenge to Myers like Laurie, only to have him stupefied by screenwriters. The next key scene is with Allison fighting off Myers. She is losing the battle, and simply decides to give up. Allison provokes Myers to stab her, pretty badass moment to be honest. Allison is the only character that had potential in the film, but the directors didn't develop the character enough to be impactful. With youth brings an evolution of a potential storyline. It's the standard in horror film production. But because the main character demanded so much attention within the plot's direction, Allison was merely used as an implication that her role will be significant. Although Myers is on the attack, it just makes the previous disregard of Allison even more hypocritical. Why is he deciding to kill her now, when he could have killed her in the back of Hawkins' cruiser? Rhetorical, but this creates a static progression of the film's basically random character behavior of Myers. Karen comes from behind, stabs Myers in the back with a pitchfork. Once again, these references to older films is an overkill. This pitchfork was used in Halloween 5 by Myers in the barn kills. Where the hell did Karen get a goddamn pitchfork? A barn? Who just has a pitchfork lying around? Oh, okay, there's a Halloween setup on the porch, with a haystack. Please, just stop. Karen then grabs Myers' mask off his face, and so-called lures him outside to follow her. Myers stands on the porch, with Allison just sitting there waiting to be killed. There seems to be an anomaly to why Myers is just not interested in killing this young lady. There must be a trick up the storyline sleeve, but it's not worth it. In the previous film, Allison was the key focus in the woods, which would have provided a great chase scene for Myers. But instead of focusing on this chase, they didn't go that direction in the plot. And now, Allison is literally right in front of Myers, on the floor, and I guess Myers is so concerned about his mask that he would ignore Allison to follow Karen into the streets? Myers would have killed Allison to make Karen give him back his mask. That is Myers. He will hurt you 10 times more. He would have grabbed Allison after Karen took his mask and simply slit her throat as to say, I can get that mask back, but you can't get your daughter back. Myers seems to not concern himself with Allison, yet she is easy pickings right there? There is no logical explanation to this decision-making by Myers. Let's evaluate each scenario, and how they impact the audience. Allison fights Myers, Karen stabs him in the back with a Halloween 5 pitchfork, she grabs his mask and attempts to lure him in the streets to be ambushed, and Myers ignores Allison and obliges Karen's plan. Or, Allison fights Myers, Karen stabs him in the back with a Halloween 5 pitchfork, she grabs his mask and attempts to lure him in the streets to be ambushed, and Myers instead grabs Karen's daughter and stabs her in the neck. Karen screams, drops the mask, as Allison falls to the floor. The beauty of real horror. Before you say, Allison is a main character, well, think again. She hasn't really been pursued by Myers. In the backseat of the cop cruiser, Myers literally let her live. He then allowed her to escape into the woods, and now in the sequel, he just walks away from her, even though she demanded Myers kill her? Doesn't seem like a main character to me, rather, a character that Myers is clearly ignoring for some mysterious reason. But for the plot of the movie, Myers is lured out in the streets, for the so-called finale. Which leading up to that scene, there is a chase scene with Karen. So let me get this straight, Karen is running through backyards, clearly trying to lure Myers to a certain area, and Myers is like, I know you're up to something, but hey, I'll just keep following you. The real Myers would not allow such mind games to be played, he would have killed Allison and then hunted Karen down for trying to play those mind games. He's not just dangerous and intelligent, he also has integrity. But, they make him out to be quite the simpleton. Myers follows Karen all the way to another street, and he spots his mask on the ground. Can anyone say, Halloween 6 scene? This is just flat out disrespectful at this point. But all of these reference scenes are the result of lack of a logical storyline. They have to implement elements of prior films, because it's just better production and direction overall. But we reach the finale, and it's the most criticized segment in Halloween Kills. The showdown begins, Myers has been ambushed. Honestly, it's not the concept of this showdown that's the problem. Many have always subconsciously wanted this to happen in the original films. To some degree, it did happen. In the 1981 film, a crowd of angry residents arrive at his home, yelling, throwing bricks through the window, showing their concern for the lives in the neighborhood. In Halloween 4, the truckers were rounded up with their shotguns and planned to hunt down Myers for the kill. And the town momentarily gained a victory when they blasted Myers into smithereens. It's understandable, but here's why a logical concept was destroyed. He's too old. And it's physically visible as well, which makes this showdown more like a town of teenage bullies harassing an old man who just wants to go home. Let's get started with the derpness. The stage is set, and Sheriff Brackett has one of the worst lines in the movie. "Hey Michael, it's Halloween, and everyone is entitled to one good scare." It's so cheesy, but the atmosphere in this scene is more like a group of bullies targeting their victim, not preparing to face one of the most dangerous killers from their town. Myers grabs his mask off the ground and prepares for the battle. The directors wanted to push the narrative that it is the mask that drives Myers to kill. It doesn't work, and it makes Myers appear to be more of a copycat version of himself. And they show Karen in the next clip to indicate that she is somewhat of a heroine, responsible for luring Myers to that street. But what if Myers hadn't fallen for that? What if Myers had just killed Karen's daughter prior? She would be responsible for her daughter's death, trying to manipulate Myers. Now why didn't they implement this same concept, but with her saving her daughter first? Get Allison away from the house, you guys split up, and Myers would choose to chase Karen because she has his mask. So Karen goes from initially saving her daughter, but not entirely, because Myers is still alive, and then just leaves her there, with the possibility that Myers would just stab her to death? Let's look into the development of the scene for a moment. In rehearsal, Judy Greer, who plays Karen, says, quote, "You know, it would be better if I stab Myers in the back, he falls down, I grab Allison and she runs out the house, and then, I grab Myers' mask, to lure him to the vigilantes, right?" The production team says, no, that will change the amount of time Myers will chase you, and we would have to add scenes for Allison as well. It's time-consuming, leave it to the professionals, Judy. And Judy replies, but, the audience will question why Myers didn't kill Allison, right? They reply, we appreciate your input, but we know what we're doing here. Judy says, okay, you guys got it. Thinking to herself, these motherfuckers are retarded. The vigilantes are circling Myers as he prepares for the first attack. They show Karen once more, but cunningly had a random female character walk past with such anger in her face. Immediately the focus is on her, because initially I thought she may be of some significance. But no, just a hint at women empowerment when you already have that element with the main character in Laurie, her daughter Karen in this very scene, and Allison. They slipped that in, because everyone is focused on the fight scene. Tommy approaches Myers, and it appears he will strike first. But an individual behind Myers strikes him in the back, and Tommy just swirls his bat around, while everyone else does the legwork. But I thought Tommy was the town's hero? I thought Tommy would take charge. He had the balls to approach the vehicle, assuming it was Myers, right? He even bashes the hood with the bat and demands Myers get out. But when it's go time, Tommy falls back. Just a useless main character, and yes, Tommy Doyle is a main character in this film. But he's presented as just another random actor for the plot. The fight unfolds, and old Myers is getting his ass handed to him by a group of idiots. This would be the only way Myers would be defeated by such a group, he's a senior citizen. The next clip has one of those idiots attempt to shoot Myers in the head. With cat-like reflexes, old man Myers slashes his arm, and they show the idiot holding his cut arm. Then that idiot shoots Myers several times, and he falls to the ground. And with superhuman strength at 61 years old, Myers rolls over and immediately attempts to get back up. What the entire fuck is this? This is due to investing so much into the scene, they forgot that Myers was a senior citizen. Now briefly, the element of quote, regenerative powers is one of the greatest qualities of Michael Myers. We understand that, but you also have to consider his old age, with that quality. Older age means more time to recover from fucking gunshot wounds. Instead of having him attempt to get up, have the mob drag him to another area, place him in the back of a pickup truck, preparing to, I don't know, kill him and throw his body in a river or something. As the suspense builds in anticipation of that recovery, just add another fucking nostalgic scene of Myers coming back to life to kill a small group of the mob in the truck. You know, like he did in Halloween 4. Then the truck crashes, Tommy Doyle and Myers fly off the truck, and now Tommy is allowed to show what he's made of. He dies, but his death was noble. The group of idiots tee off on Myers, as if this somehow is preventing him from getting back up, instead of being blasted 5 times by gunshots moments prior. Karen looks on, as if she has some personal vendetta being resolved, and it all stops, when of all people, Tommy hits him in the back. The music stops, and the so-called suspense builds as to what happens next. And once again, another fucking reference to a previous film. The same scene of Tommy hitting Myers on the ground is the same fucking scene in Halloween 6, with Tommy hitting Myers on the ground. Anywho. Myers has been defeated, laying on the ground, helpless, a tired old man, exhausted after being beaten down. Karen approaches, senseless babbling from Tommy again, as Myers reaches for his knife for one last fight. Karen grabs the knife, stabs him in the back, Tommy reacts as if it was so horrible yet they just beat the hell out of him with bats, and shot him 5 times, sad music plays, and there you have it, Myers is dead. How could they possibly believe that Myers is dead, after he literally took 5 shots, and was still trying to get back up? Well, they tried to distract you with this obvious derpness, with a narration from Laurie Strode. She's nowhere around when this is happening, by the way, although it's supposed to be Myers versus Laurie Strode in the storyline. She's not laying up in a hospital bed, no, she's giving a narration explaining to Hawkins, who's the one laying up in a hospital bed. Since Laurie knows the individual who was being chased wasn't Myers, where in the hell did her urgency go, in knowing Myers is still out there? Once again, bad scene building. Throughout her Dr. Loomis exposition of Myers, there is obvious unresolved tension building. Laurie continues her rambling. Tommy looks like he's not even a part of the storyline, let alone a main character, and Sheriff Brackett approaches Myers on the ground. Myers comes back to life, slashes Brackett's throat, the group of idiots just stand around and watch Myers kill them off one by one. The backdrop of the kills is actually more like a music video rather than a physical reality of what is taking place, such as killing a bunch of idiots. And the reason for this cinematic backdrop is the directors have to avoid showing the physical movement of each idiot and how Myers interacts with each idiot in combat. You see how derp this crap is? He has to physically move around, such as dodging and avoiding attacks from different angles, right? But of course, they were affected by the slow-motion potion, which decreased their speed by 50%, making Myers much faster in reaction to their attacks. So now we have bullet time in Halloween, okay yeah. Then Myers kills the beloved leader of the idiots, the grand idiot himself, Tommy Doyle. First he stabs him, then grabs his bat and bashes his head, to the point it breaks the bat, and then stabs Tommy with it. Finally, putting the dumbass out of his misery, for my sake. But the ending is quite odd though, it has Karen walking into the home and into the bedroom. She apparently envisions a young Myers through the window upstairs, which somehow draws her inside. She stands at the window, looking out into the street, and Myers comes up behind her and kills her? Not likely, there were still people at the front entrance of the house, it was actually a vision, which will simply be the beginning scene of Halloween Ends. It's obvious, but Halloween Ends, despite whatever trick they have up their sleeves, will simply be all for nothing. Because Halloween already ended in 1995. Halloween Kills was literally the worst Halloween film ever made, and I mean, ever. It lacks in every category, almost to the point of being slated a parody of a real Halloween Kills film that's out there somewhere in the shadows. This makes the 2018 film look like a masterpiece. To its credit, it did have the potential to be a great film, but the core problem has always compromised that potential. Halloween Kills, on the other hand, felt like it was created by teenagers who just want to see a bunch of sloppy, aggressive, derptastic kill scenes. The atmosphere was tacky, Tommy Doyle was astoundingly retarded, and the acting felt like they just got random people off the street. And Laurie Strode disappeared in the most important moment of the plot, Myers being so-called defeated. Waited all those years, and she didn't even participate in the triumph over evil? And the so-called trinity of Strode women? Well, two of them weren't even involved in the final battle. While the other, Karen, seemed so out of place with the mob of vigilantes. This film gets a craptastic 1 out of 5, and that's only due to the flashback scenes where they brought Dr. Loomis back to life for those few moments. Other than that, it was a sad day for Halloween fans. And actually, that flashback only insulted the brilliance of Loomis and the original team that worked very hard to captivate the audience. They should be ashamed of themselves for wasting that precious nostalgia. It would have been better in the 2018 film. But when you have producers and directors leeching off a legacy, they just want recognition, not respect. This is the Chaos Sector, Film Reviews.